Hey everyone, my name is Austin with Blix, and today we'll be learning how to replace your fork. All right, let's get to it.
Before we start, you should grab your tools. For this job, you'll need a 4mm Allen key and a 5mm Allen key, which are included in your toolkit. You'll also need a pair of needle nose pliers. Start by removing the front wheel from the fork. Loosen the quick release and slide the wheel out of the fork ends. Next, we'll remove the front fender. First, you can unscrew the fender struts from the eyelets on each side of the fork. Then, remove the bolt attaching the top of the fender to the fork crown. Your fender will still be connected to the bike via the light cable, so while you could disconnect the light and route the cable back out of the fender, it's easier to simply hang it over the frame as shown. Now, we're going to remove the brake caliper from the fork. Loosen the two bolts that mount the brake caliper to the fork, and then cut the zip tie holding the brake cable housing in place. Your fork is ready to be removed from the bike, but to do so, we'll need to open up the stem. Pull the latch on the left side of the stem and lift up the cover to reveal the stem bolt. Now, we'll use the 5mm Allen key to loosen the stem bolt, which is recessed into a small cavity on top of the stem. You'll also need to loosen the two pinch bolts on the front of the stem before you can lift it off of the fork. If you still can't remove the stem after you loosen these pinch bolts, go back to the previous step and loosen the stem bolt even more. Your fork is now detached from the bike, but it's still being held up by the spring between the fork and frame. This spring is called the deflopilator because it keeps the front wheel from flopping around while the bike is on its kickstand. There's quite a bit of tension in this spring, so it can help to use a pair of pliers to remove it. Next, we'll remove the spacers and the headset cap from the steerer tube, followed by the rest of the headset parts and bearings. It's very important to set all these parts aside in order. Doing so will make it much easier to properly install them later on. You should have 4 spacers, a tapered headset cap, a small dust ring, a centering ring, and the bottom bearing. Alright, now you're ready to grab your new fork. Start by swapping the hardware over, and removing the top cap and fork end protector. Before proceeding, make sure that the top bearing stayed in place during the previous steps. The top bearing should be snugly fit inside the top of the head tube. Okay, now you will place the headset bearing around the fork and slide it down to the bottom of the steerer tube. The beveled edge of the bearing should be facing up. Take the fork and insert it back up through the steerer tube. You'll need to hold it in place while replacing the rest of the parts. Start with the centering ring. The thinner side will face down and fit into the space around the bottom bearing. Next, replace the headset cap with the dust ring on top. And finally, the 4 spacers can be replaced as well. Now, place the stem back on top of the fork and begin to tighten the stem bolt. You'll need to make sure that the fork and stem are well aligned before tightening this bolt. Don't forget to tighten the pinch bolts as well. After securing the stem in place and ensuring the handlebars are aligned and adjusted to your liking, you can close the stem cap and finish up your work. Reattach the fender to the new fork, starting at the top of the fender and then moving down to the fender struts. Reinstall the front wheel by sliding the axle into the fork ends and tightening the quick release. Attach the brake caliper back to the fork and use a new zip tie to secure the brake cable in place. And last but not least, don't forget to reattach the deflopilator. And that's it. Please be sure to test out your work in a safe place before taking to the streets. I hope this video was clear and helped you replace your Packa fork. But as always, please let us know if you have any questions.